Producer Joe here from the Working Fans Podcast. And at the Working Fans Podcast, this is just a podcast that three lifelong fans created to have a place to talk comedy and pro wrestling. Now, our comedy podcast releases every Tuesday, while our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday. We release bonus episodes under the moniker Working Fans Presents every now and then. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, any major podcast provider. The important thing is just please like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us. Now, we have started a new thing. We are now on Amazon and Audible. So those episodes release every Monday. And that's kind of going through the archives and just releasing our old episodes in a new area. So if you want to live through the process with us again, take that journey with us again, you can find us over on Amazon and Audible. Now, if you can't get enough of us in the audio form, check out our YouTube. It's youtube.com/C/Working Fans Wrestling Pod, or just search Working Fans Podcast on YouTube. We have the whole archive is up there. And if you listen to the Working Fans Podcast, you are more than familiar with the 531. That is our signature segment where we take your top 5 lists on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. Now, guys, if you want to hear 3 guys talk shit about comedy, wrestling, life, anything, you will enjoy the Working Fans Podcast.
It's the Working Fans Podcast with the man they call Dave, and today we got a pro wrestler, a comedian, a podcaster, Mr. Cory Kastle. How you doing today?
What's up, Dave?
What's going on, man? I like that you're into all these different things. Me myself, like I'm 44 now. And I was just talking about this like with my girlfriend recently, like, and she's noticed it too. Like, I get very excited about people who have many different passions, and I appreciate that. Like, the older I get, when I was younger, it might have fell off, but now I'm like, oh, cool. Maybe it's because you start doing a bunch of shit you don't like. You know?
Well, I mean, it might have something to do with that. Maybe it's escapism. You know, maybe it's an escape from. Dude, like, I do all these things that I really like, but then I'll like work these day jobs that I dislike, and this stuff is a good, happy distraction from it, you know,
like Zen-like, right? Like almost like that.
But I think what's also great to be appreciated is excitement. The fact that you're excited about that stuff, that's something to celebrate too.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, and it's motivating, like from a creative aspect too. I don't know if this is where I'm just thinking like out loud, but like recently for like us, we started doing a thing after 2 years where we're getting together and meeting up more and brainstorming about ideas. And it's the simplest thing, but man, it motivates the shit out of me sometimes. Now I start talking to other people with creative ideas and I want to do this and that. And it's like, it doesn't feel like such a workload sometimes too.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of easier to relax a little bit on the amount of work that you've got to do when you know somebody else is taking care of it.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. Now, how did so I'm assuming wrestling was first before comedy, and I think you were telling me before your dad was a wrestler too?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. All right. I misunderstood that. How did you get into professional wrestling then?
My dad wasn't a wrestler, so that's not what got me.
Definitely not that.
No,
We were on the phone, and I think I must have just misunderstood that.
Oh,
We were
yeah.
talking-
Okay.
That's fine. That's pretty good.
No, man. There was this dates back. This dates back to the old '90s. So that's how far we go back in history here. My friend Scott found an article in the newspaper about this wrestling school that was in Bristol, PA, which is like 5 minutes from here. I live in Langhorne, PA, which is the suburbs of Philly. So, so we go and check out this school where there's like kids there. It's all kids our age. We were 14, 15 years old at the time. And this was the summer before 9th grade. And we went there, and it was just basically like this man who was a dropout of the Monster Factory had like decided he was going to open his own school because I guess Larry probably told him he sucked and he needed work. So he was like, "Oh, I'll show you who sucks. I'll start my own thing where I get really drunk and really high and just hurt a bunch of kids. That'll show them."
Does not sound like a promising adventure.
So this guy would get real drunk and high and stuff, and he would just hurt us and stuff. And he taught us how to like take a back bump, how to run the ropes, how to do a flip bump, and then that's it. Right? So he was like everything. It was like anything you watched on TV, you can show up there and try it. Like, and you know, this was like 98, 99, 2000, right? So this is the peak of like everything that we're watching on TV is great and cool. So we're now a part of the business in our brains. We're like, we're in the business now. But still huge fans and still huge marks, not really smartened up to what wrestling is or how to work. Like, so I was going there till I was, okay. So do you know who Rick Feinberg is, or Rick Connor? He has a YouTube channel with a good amount of subscribers, and him and I co-host Wrestle Rock together. RASSLE Rock. That's a podcast that we do. I met him there, and he went and discovered the CZW school.
Okay.
And he had started going to the CZW school. So when this place shut down, I caught up with. Do you know who Discount Dewey Donovan is?
No.
Discount Dewey Donovan manages Nick Gage.
Okay.
The king of this shit, Nick Gage.
Yeah.
Right. So.
You just answered something. I just started watching more GCW, and I just noticed that guy the other night. I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? You answered my question.
His name is Discount Dewey Donovan.
Yeah.
Him and I also go way back, and I credit him for like kind of breaking me into the business because he hit me up on AOL Instant Messenger and was like, "Hey, you should come to the CZW school." And he was like, "Oh, Rich is also that's Rick Connor." He was like, "Rich is also here." So I came and I started. I didn't realize that Rick didn't like me. But I started bugging him to give me rides to the school. And so through him giving me rides to the school all the time, he started to like me. So at first he didn't like me at all.
Ignorance is bliss, I guess, right?
And it turns out I was the best man in his wedding.
Oh shit!
And I did a speech, and I said, about 23 years ago, Rick and I met, and we were friends immediately. Is what I'd like to say, but we weren't really friends immediately. He really didn't like me, and now here I am, as his best man at his wedding, saying a speech. which bodes well for Heather because he didn't like her at first either.
Oh man. So that's pretty good. His initial gut instincts are usually wrong, but
right. But
funny.
so then I went to the CCW school in 2001 probably, and I got trained by John Dahmer and Eddie Valentine. Okay. They were known as VD. They were a world travel tag team. Valentine and Dahmer, not the other VD, whatever that other.
No, yeah. You got to get shots for that, I think.
Yeah. So some sort of virus.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then that's how I guess that's the answer to the question. How I got broken into the business was through the newspaper. The newspaper article helped me discover how to get into the wrestling business.
So like most people got into like these kayfabe wrestling magazines. You found a legitimate news. You got it.
And the thing, the joke that I make all the time too is like back then we at that place, and I don't give it a name. I don't tell people the name of it or who ran it, but we had shows. We had shows, and they were terrible, and they were like, oh man, it was like people were charging their parents $15 to come and watch this show that was like in like a broken down body shop with like a half homemade built ring inside of it. So it was basically like backyard wrestling, but with a trained wrestler who was teaching us how to do it. And in the shows, we had like a little boom box that we used for our theme songs. And my theme song, when I first broke into the business, was a cassette tape. That's how old I am and how long I've been in wrestling.
That's awesome.
So pro wrestling, folks.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I was also a teenager. I was a young boy. I was 14 when I jumped into.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I mean,
you got some life experience.
Yeah. It built up the life experience notches on my belt.
Now, what would you say? I'm just curious. Like now, so you start training with someone who probably shouldn't have been training you, but you get what you can out of it, and
right.
You're lucky enough to go. What would you say was like your style, like when you started wrestling, as opposed to maybe now? Like, how's it?
Oh boy, style was not a word that would ever be used to describe anything I was ever doing in the ring. But I think honestly, dude, I was just stumbling through it. Like it was weird because I got to a point where the fact that I started with two of my best friends, right? And going into it, okay, I have to also say, this stud that you see in front of you now, this hunk, this chiseled Adonis that you see in front of you now, not what I was when I was a kid.
Okay.
So I was like a skinny, fat, weird, sweaty, awkward boy with thick glasses and a stupid haircut. So my style was that I was stumbling through it because I couldn't see anything. I didn't have contacts. I didn't have glasses. So I was just like anytime I ever watch anything I was in, I was like, oh, I was just all squints. So yes, I was squints. That was my style. I was squinty. Squintin' Tarantino.
I was picturing like maybe this is why your friend didn't like you at first. Maybe you accidentally heard him in the ring and you didn't know you can't see.
Maybe that's the case. Maybe I don't. Not really sure. I mean, I think it was a a bit of jealousy, a bit of us starting at the same place and stuff like that. And that's just I don't know what it is, but it probably was the fact that you were jealous of me.
So funny. I'm just wondering, obviously pro wrestling, we know it's like, it's entertainment, but it's also a very physical thing. The bumps, everything's real. It hurts. Like, do you have any like pre-match like rituals, like, like to get into like, ready to perform and, or the music or anything? I'm just curious.
Well, I kind of like to poop before I wrestle. I kind of like to take a good poop before wrestling. And also,
probably good idea too.
Yeah, because the thing is, like on show days, and most wrestlers probably tell you the same thing. On show days, like I don't like to eat anything. I don't for fear of the fact that I don't want to have to poop my pants in the ring. So I have to make sure it's part of my ritual to get the poop stuff taken care of.
That's funny. Dude, I'll tell you what, I throw that question out there once in a while. That's the best answer I've heard. Yeah. Usually someone will go music or something else. The first one is that I gotta take a shit. I love it. It's so awesome, man.
So, like, this is a true story. I had a match at the arena, probably, I'm going to guess like 2005 or 6 or something. And it was me and DJ Hyde in a tag match against Claudio Cesaro and Chris Hero. So Claudio picked up Chris Hero and body slammed him on top of me. And I didn't know that was coming. And I farted real hard. As soon as he landed, it was like, as soon as he, and I swore I crapped myself. I swore I crapped myself in the ring. And I was so upset. And as I'm getting up to sell for the next thing, to feed for the next spot, like if you watch the video back, like you can watch my hand check and come up and smell my own hand to see if there's just shit in there, but there wasn't.
But the near shit experience was like, all right.
I've been traumatized. I've been traumatized by a potential shit my pants situation here in the ring. But I can also now, like, anytime I ever see Cesaro on TV and be like, that guy almost made me shit myself.
That's a awesome story. Now, Cesaro, I mean, okay, so like Chris Hero, I mean, those are bigger names, but you have people that doesn't necessarily equate to like the answer to what I'm going to ask you. Like, who are some of your favorite people to work with throughout your career?
You're not going to know any of them.
Okay. Well, how about this? Why were they your favorite people to work with?
Okay, so my old tag partner, Matt Bomboy. Do you know who that is?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we were in a tag team called TNE, Team New Era.
Okay. That sounds familiar, but go ahead.
So when we would have matches with each other, it was always intense. It was always fun, and we'd always make sure to be very physical. And like we would get kind of caught up. So Matt Bomboy, probably like one of my favorite people to work with in the ring. And not to say that our first match went good, because our first match went terrible, and it was famously terrible. The room of pro wrestling. Our match was Tommy Wiseau and
Tommy Wiseau.
Tear me apart, boy. So it was. It was. Our matches were good. My good opponent of mine. I always liked working with KO Storm. He's a guy from Delaware who has a Canadian gimmick. He would come out to look at this photograph by Nickelback and get so much heat. It was ridiculous.
I've never heard. That's so great. I hear there's so many great wrestlers from Canada, but I've never heard of playing like the gimmick of being Canadian, not Russian. Not
Right. Like, he would come out as a Canadian, and he'd have the look at this photograph playing and get booed out of the building. Everybody hated it, but he was having a good time, and he was a good worker.
Yeah.
But I think he also went and did the whole wife and kids thing.
Yeah.
That's what that's what's left. That's what's left me being the only one of my friends still wrestling, because Rick's gone, Matt's gone, Niles is gone. He was one of my favorite opponents too. Do you know Niles Young?
Again, some of the names hit me would like I'm hearing it, but I'm not sure. So.
Okay, so we used to be a tag team in CCW back in like the early 2000s. We were called CKNY.
Okay.
And he then went on later to become Nico Sozio was his name, and he was the CCW heavyweight champion for a minute. And he led a faction called the Front, and he was like feuding against Drew Gulak in CCW. Like,
okay.
At the end of Drew Gulak's like CCW career.
CZKY.
CKNY was what
CKNY. Was there's no like a group like Jackass or something that was using a similar? Was that part of the name?
That was part of the inspiration. Yeah, I mean, we wanted that to kind of turn into what our gimmick was. That like we do silly goose things because that was around the time when it was the most popular. That those silly geese. We wanted to flock with them.
That's great.
But it was called CKY. It was Camp Kill Yourself. It was like
Camp
yeah. It was Bam Margera, Brandon DiCamillo, Ryan Dunn. Like before it was Jack.
Yeah.
It was CKY.
Right.
But this was after they weren't CKY. I mean, it wasn't CKY as much anymore. It was just Jackass now at this point, but we're purists. We like the old stuff.
So funny. We're the purists of the Jackass. That's great.
Give me that pure, unfiltered Jackass.
Now, what would you say in terms of wrestling? This is kind of my final wrestling question. I'm curious. What would you say are your goals left? Because I know you're still wrestling. I'm listening to some other shows and stuff. So, what do you want to do? Is there other goals? I don't know.
Well, I think the main part of my goals is that it sounds so cheesy. It sounds so corny. I just want to make sure that anytime anybody comes and sees me wrestle, or anytime anybody gets in the ring with me, or anytime anybody buys a ticket or whatever, that is a moment for them. That's for them. They're like, man, I'm gonna take this with me, and they're gonna have that. That's what I hope that for not just my wrestling. I want that for my comedy. I want that for my podcast.
Okay.
Like, when people consume it, they're glad they did, and that's not necessarily a destination goal. Like people might say that their goal is go work for AEW or WWE or MLW or Ring of Honor. Those are all cool and stuff. Like, but that's not part of my goals.
Right.
I have so many other plates to spin. so I especially when it comes to like WWE, like I'm not ready to give up my identity. I'm not ready to give somebody else the credit for my success. And I think they'll take all the credit for your success, and I don't think I'm ready for that.
Yeah.
I equate that to kind of selling your soul a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like the money versus like your personal freedom and time and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
And also, I won't be able to do my podcast anymore. Like, I want to make sure no matter where I go or what I do in the entertainment business, I will continue to do my podcast till I'm dead. I want that to be for sure the thing that, because I know all that stuff's outliving me, man. All that stuff's outliving me.
Good point.
And inside of that, I'm being as absolutely vulnerable and as sincerely myself as I can possibly be. So if you're catching that from the vibe of the show, that's what it is. Hopefully you catch that. Hopefully you catch that I'm like loving what I'm doing and I'm passionate about it, because like I know that there's inspiration to be had for folks. So I know if I'm a huge fan of podcasts, I listen to podcasts. If I wasn't me, I'd want to listen to my podcast. I'd want to check me out. I'd want to check out Evolving with Cory Kastle on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find good podcasts and subscribe to them. Yeah, absolutely.
It's the Working Fans Podcast with the man they call Dave and AJ Strangebrew, back at it again, and we're talking the 531 biggest debuts in wrestling history. AJ, I know I gave you some lists. I can't wait to see if you're going to argue with us about some of these for debuts.
I'm definitely going to argue with you guys about some of them. Some of these aren't even big debuts at all.
I'm going to read some stuff that Joe gave me first that weren't technically full list, and we'll get these out of the way, and maybe we'll just get some comments.
Get the shock master out right now.
All right, we got Aaron from the mothership who added this. Kazarni is not one. Though, if I understood the reference to Cardi culture and wrestling history at the time, I'd have appreciated it more. Thank you, Aaron, for letting us know that Kazarni was not one.
I'm also sad that you didn't understand the references.
Yeah, he would have appreciated it, though.
I assume you were 6 at the time.
Simon from the mothership. Scott Hall in WCW ranks up there. Just perfection. You instantly wondered what would happen next. Taz in WWF was also great. He looked like a killer if you forgot everything that happened after that. Fair point. Matthew, Shockmaster. That's it. We got a Dave from the mothership. AJ, you're going to appreciate this debut. Too Cold Scorpio teaming with Ron Simmons at Clash versus Barbarian, Cactus Jack, and Tony Atlas.
Well, that's one that they still speak of today.
I don't think that was his debut.
No, it wasn't.
I don't think
it wasn't. And Ron Simmons had been wrestling also in the company for fucking 5 years at that point. But hey, whatever.
Yeah.
Great debut.
Breton from the mothership. I don't know if this counts as a debut, but when Cena appeared on Raw for the first time after he was drafted in 2005. Now,
his debut would be against freaking Kurt Angle when he came out with the Ruthless Aggression,
which I think people will have that on here. But that is quite a moment. It was a good moment when they actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not fucking talking about moments. We're talking about debuts.
So I'm gonna say I think that's where I don't have a problem with debuts being like Rick. It'll be on a spoiler. Ric Flair will be on my list later for debuting in the WWF with the.
That is a debut.
That's a debut, right? There's a difference between that and maybe you're doing a new character, or there's a debut of a new.
If you're inside the same organization, it's not a debut.
And you didn't change your gimmick You didn't change nothing. You just went to a show on another night. Yeah, I agree.
I'm wrestling on Mondays. Woo!
But it was a great moment. I will say that.
Sure, absolutely.
And he did ask if it counts. He did so.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
absolutely. But if we go by that definition, we can do Cena on Raw. We can do Cena when he came back from the injury at the Royal Rumble. We can do Cena when he jumped ship to SmackDown and then back to Raw. We just have all Cena. It'll be great.
He did add this though. Punk from AEW was great.
Yeah.
Goldberg in 03 was fantastic. Announcers
interrupting The Rock.
The camera shots, fans, and The Rock's reaction. Amazing.
Yeah, his debut was great. It was what they did with him the rest of the time he was there.
Right. Well, see the guy earlier who pointed out Taz.
Yeah.
You forget everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, a great debut, unfortunately, does not make a great WWE career.
And Scott Hall was also great. He wanted to add that. And
If you like somebody interrupting a Mike Enos match, I mean, I guess.
And last but not least, I'm just going to get this one in before we move on with our real list.
This is going to be Brian, the one that pisses me off.
No, I think you're going to like this one, actually. Brian Last from the Mothership, co-host with Jim Cornette, the Jim Cornette Experience.
Love Brian Last.
He's got Richard Belzer, the Edge.
Okay, that's fucking awesome.
I thought you would appreciate that. I knew you would.
That is great.
That was pretty good.
And if you don't like the Richard Belzer one, I will also take the John frickin' Stossel reference also. Either one really works in this situation.
AJ, how about you give me a list here? What you got?
I got Mike Flynn. He's coming with Jericho on Raw, which I think we might see a lot of.
Sure.
NWO, which I assume he means the Scott Halls, since he was technically the first one to show up.
I mean, you could argue that.
Are we going to do an NWO one every time a new member showed up for like 50 weeks?
No, but I mean, you could argue the formation of the NWO at Bash of the Beach.
But is that a debut due to the fact that two of them were already working at that point? That is the first time they called it the New World Order.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that. I would accept that too. If someone,
I'm willing to accept that one. That's a hell of a lot better than the Cena one. That's for damn sure.
We'll keep an eye out and see what people keep saying. I've seen a lot of Scott Hall so far, so we can separate.
This one is not clear, but just Brock Lesnar. So I assume they mean when he was a rookie, when he came out with Paul Heyman.
I'm gonna say, when he came out to Raw, and I know you remember it. When
I remember his debut. Yeah. I'm just not sure that's a top 5 worthy one.
Yeah.
Taz to the WWE. I think we're going to see that often, especially with this group of people that we are referencing.
It was a great debut.
And now I got to tell you, I disagree with this one. He put the Shield. To me, the Shield's not a top 5 one. To me, the Shield was at that point redoing Nexus. So to me, if you're gonna put a bigger debut, I think Nexus and the way they did it was actually bigger than what the Shield did.
So I'm gonna agree and disagree at the same time. Yes, I think Nexus, the impact of what they originally did and the way they tore the set down.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, the Shield had a much better run.
They had a much better career, right? So if you want to look at it as the debut of what ended up being one of the great factions.
But for me, we're going for sheer debut. And the shock of what the Nexus did, to me, way overweighed what the Shield did.
Wade. I see what you did there. All right.
Yes.
And I got some bad news for you because I got another list here.
Thank you. Thank you, Wade Barrett.
I got Jamie from the Mothership. This is the last one from the Mothership we're going to have. He's got Y2J on Raw 99, CM Punk to AEW, Ric Flair's belt on WWE Superstars.
That's good. I like that.
That shit is really good.
You can technically have the belt and have Ric Flair's as two separate things because the belt got there like 3 months before him.
91. This is the debut on that shitty studio version of Primetime Wrestling. Now,
wait a minute. Whoa.
He was right. It was a shitty studio. But I think it might have made an appearance before that on Superstars.
I think Superstars is the first.
I'd have to. I'm not totally.
He could be right.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I first remembered on Superstars.
Right, because I remember him.
But hey, maybe the Superstars one wasn't as good of a debut.
maybe even prime time. No, because Bobby came out at the end of Superstars, and he did the same thing on Primetime Wrestle, but he did it with Gorilla on Primetime, and I think the Anvil was there too at that time. And Bobby's like, "Whose belt is that? That's not Hulk Hogan's belt." He's like, "No." He's like,
It's
"This is not the
real world champion."
Comparing the belt to the men who wear it, it's like comparing ice cream to horse
cream
manure.
to cow manure. Oh, was it horse? I thought it was cow manure. But horse manure is good. Nice.
NWO to WWF in 2002. He also has Goldberg to Raw in 03. Wasn't that the first of the night after Mania surprise debuts? No. Actually, Goldberg debuted. Wait. Actually, it was because it set up the Backlash.
How can you have NWO to WWE and not have NWO's original freaking?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Vince McMahon turned it around and announcing it. It was pretty cool. But yeah, I would think the original moment itself kind of beats it out.
Especially since it was the first time Hogan had turned heel in freaking 11 years. For Christ's sakes.
What do you got next for us, bud?
So next up, I've got Mrs. St. John's second favorite baby boy. I've got Jake St. John coming in. He's got Kane's WWE debut. That's which was terrifying for all of us. He's got AJ Styles at the Royal Rumble. That's a good one. Jericho's debut in New Japan. Kenny Omega post match as the Painmaker. That's actually a really good one.
Yeah,
I like that one. CM Punk and AEW.
I'm gonna get that.
And then Jake Rule in effect. We've got Taz in the WWE at the Royal Rumble, and can't forget the Radicals WWE debut.
That's a good one too. I'm not seeing a ton of the Radicals on here, and that is funny because that's the first time we had 4 people jump ship in one night.
In one night, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that ever was done.
And it was a good debut because they were literally just sitting there in the crowd.
And then they got into it with somebody too.
Yeah.
I don't remember, Al Snow or somebody, but yeah.
Well, they weren't jobbing out to that squad.
No, they weren't. They were not. Jason Gross from the Rockin' Randy's wrestling group. He's got the Undertaker. He's got Vader in WCW. He's got Earthquake, John Tenta from WWF, and Y2J. So he's only got 4.
I know a thing about work names, and I have to assume that Jason Gross is a work name.
He uses it all the time, man. I'll tell you what. I just heard a story from a guy we have coming up on the podcast. This isn't on our episode, but he references it. Stevie Ray tells a story about.
Wait a minute, is that Stevie Ray from Harlem Heat?
It is.
You got Stevie Ray from Harlem Heat as an interview?
It might air before this, for all I know. But
oh my god.
So John Tenta Earthquake. There's a story on Stevie's podcast that he had at the time. He tells a story where apparently one of the few times they saw him get mad, and he's like, he comes rushing in the back and he's throwing things around and he's pissed, and he's like, me and my brother are looking at him like, whoa, what the hell? Like, John's kind of our boy, we like him, but at the same time, like, we're like, he's a badass man. This is a legit sumo wrestler, and he said they changed the angle on me. And they're like, who you mad at? He's like, Iron Anderson. And they're like, he was ready to kill him. Like, Iron's our boy too. We didn't want to say anything. So he's like, he's going off. And just then, the door swings open, and it's Iron Anderson. And John Tenta's throwing things. I'll kill Iron. I'll kill him. And Iron just shuts the door right back. And Iron just keeps going. Because Iron's like, and Iron doesn't remember this. But Stevie's like, I don't know what happened. We're going to tell him to get out. But he knew enough. He saw Tenta.
That to me just tells you how smart Iron Anderson is.
And Iron Anderson's a badass motherfucker himself, but nobody's trying to fucking try John Tenta.
Leave the 400-pound former sumo wrestler alone.
That was not about his debut. His debut was interesting. I always remember that, where they set up the Ultimate Warrior with the push-up challenge, and then he ended up doing that earthquake spot on him. Because
I prefer his debut as the Shark.
Yeah, I'm not a fish. I'm a man. It's so horrible. Who do you got for your next list?
All right, so since we had Mrs. St. John's second favorite baby boy, we figured we'd go this time to the top spot. Mrs. St. John's favorite baby boy, Zach St. John. We've got CM Punk on Rampage. I think that's going to hit a lot of lists. Jericho on Raw interrupting The Rock from 99.
Looks like our top 2 so far.
Oh, absolutely. Hall to WCW starting the NWO.
That'd be our top 3.
So he agrees with me that that's actually the start of the NWO.
Yeah.
Goldberg on Raw confronting The Rock. So that's hit a lot of lists.
That's
also
yeah.
Lex Luger showing up on the first Nitro. That was a hell of a debut.
It was.
For someone who didn't mean shit to anyone,
Yeah.
that was a hell of a debut.
Yeah.
That's in the WWE. He's got Brock Lesnar's first debut in the WWE. And then he actually put Adam Cole's for AEW. And to be honest with you, I think Adam Cole's, because of the way that they did it, actually got more of a reaction than Bryan Danielson, because you popped the crowd there. And I'm not saying that he killed Bryan Danielson.
you know, I'm disagreeing.
Yeah, I know. I know you're going to disagree. I just feel like people thought that he was coming down to actually fight against them. And it kind of popped the crap out of him, because I think once they saw him, they didn't expect Bryan Danielson.
Right.
So then maybe it did build up Bryan Danielson a little bit, but I think they were also exhausted by that point.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I see something there anyway. We'll continue on with that later on. I got Kenny Culler from Rockin' Randy's. He's got Kane, Taz, Cactus Jack.
Wait a minute, Cactus Jack or Mankind?
Hold on a second here. I can't. It says in the box for WCW. So that's when Cactus came out.
Yeah, no, I know what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, that's. I mean, I think Cactus was already in WCW.
That's what I'm saying. That wasn't
a very
actually
specific
debut.
Yeah. Well, it was the debut of Cactus out of a box. So
yes.
Hey, props for that. He's got CM Punk at AEW, and he's got Goldberg. If you just put down Goldberg, I'm going to take that as his WCW run, by the way. You don't have to specify that, because to me, yeah, that's what I think of. Also, I want to add this before we get to the next one. Tyler Peters, friend of the show, added Undertaker from Survivor Series. That was it. So that's why I want to get that out there. And Josh DeBoard from regularly scheduled hostilities, also a friend of the show, added Cena. And I'm going to take that as the Kurt Angle one, like we talked about.
I think early on for WWE, one of the things that we have to remember is that early on they didn't really do the surprises. A lot of times they did the vignettes ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And I think that actually took away from some of the debuts, because people knew the person was coming. So it kind of took away the surprise factor of it.
Like the Razor Ramon stuff.
Exactly. Or Dusty Rhodes. I mean, I think if people had brought out, I think coming off of what he had done in the NWA, if they had brought out Dusty Rhodes as Dusty Rhodes, instead of doing the plumber vignettes and crap like that, I think that he might have gotten a little better of a pop also.
Don't forget about the pizza man. The meat guy. I haven't seen it yet. I don't think it's going to make a list, but I would have accepted too if somebody said the debut of Dusty in polka dots. I would have accepted that. But how many more lists do you got, bud?
I've got Randy Osga and then myself.
All right. Let me knock 2 out, and then we'll go to next to you. Chuck Wenster of regularly scheduled hostilities. He's also got AJ Styles in WWE. That is one that has it. That was a good surprise. There was no vignettes.
That's only made one other list. Jake St. John's to the best.
Yeah, that's a good one. He's also got Adam Cole in AEW.
Baby.
He's got Sting in WWE, even though it was followed up terribly. That's true. It was followed up terribly, but the actual debut,
the debut was actually really good.
Yeah.
The debut for Sting actually in AEW was really good.
Also, Sting he's one of the best.
The guy's a hell of a debuter. Sting's debut as the Crow was really good.
Yeah. And then he's got Goldberg in WWE in 2003 and Brock Lesnar in 2002.
Not a bad list.
I'm gonna finish up and then we'll get back to you. I got Matt. This is Joe's brother, Matt. He's got AJ Styles with WWE.
Mrs. Seart's favorite baby boy.
Oh, listen to this. AJ Styles with WWE, because I was there and it was the loudest pop I've ever heard. So pretty cool. He got to be there for that moment.
That's awesome.
CM Punk with AEW, Adam Cole with AEW, Daniel Bryan with AEW, and I'm assuming he's talking about originally Samoa Joe with NXT.
Do you think it took away from Finn Balor's debut the fact that he went to NXT first? Do you think that he might have gotten a similar reaction to AJ Styles had he come to the main roster? Or do you think he wasn't as familiar with the American fans having not been on that ever so large show of Impact?
Yeah, I do think Joe had more recognition with the American fans than Finn Balor at that time.
Yeah.
I think Finn
I
Balor
agree.
was over, and it was getting really old. But I would give the nod.
I
to
was
Joe.
comparing him more with AJ Styles since they both had come from the Bullet Club.
That AJ debut, I think, stands a little ahead above the rest for me.
Well, I think it was also one of those things that for years AJ had teased leaving TNA to go to the WWE. So to finally see it happen, I think kind of pushed people over the edge.
I would agree. Now, we got Randy Oscar, I believe you said.
Oh, yeah. Straight from the farm itself, we've got Randy Oscar.
He'll appreciate that.
Number one, he's got Chris Jericho coming to the WWE in 1999. He's got the beginning of Ruthless Aggression, John Cena. He's got a man called Kane. He's also got, finally, the Nexus.
Oh,
Jesus.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Scott Hall in WCW starting off the NWO.
So I got Mike Caldwell from Mike and Fred Facebook page. He's always
love that page.
Always comes out and gives us some stuff. He's got NWO, Big Show, and WWE. That's an interesting one. We haven't heard that one. Mankind, Undertaker, and John Cena. I'm gonna follow up with one more list, and we'll get to yours, and then I'll have to do mine. I got Scott from Voluntown. He's got Chris Jericho from Monday Night Raw. The NWO. Thank you, Scott, for adding this too. WCW Bash at the Beach '96. So
dude, I'm glad he clarified that.
Somebody did, yes. Kane and WWF In Your House Bad Blood. Here's one not enough people had. John Moxley, AEW Double or Nothing. That was a big debut. And then this one, a little bit of a sleeper. Kishin Liger, New Japan Pro Wrestling '96. The Alter Ego. Dude, I'm gonna get so slammed for this. The Alter Ego of Jushin Thunder Liger.
No, I thought you killed that.
Yeah, I'm gonna hear that shit. Oh yeah, old viral insulitis boy right here. So,
what's the point of having a handicap if you can't make fun of it?
You know, I agree. Go ahead, AJ. I'm gonna let you do it. I'll wrap us up here. What do you got?
So I've got the Nexus also, which is why I was talking about that so much. I really think
it is a great debut. Yeah,
I think the way they did it, people literally, especially in that crowd, were absolutely shocked. And who they did it to. I mean, they did it to John Cena, who at the time was pretty much invincible. I've got like a lot of other people, CM Punk to Rampage. Sure. I think that gave me chills still to this point. Even watching it and knowing it was coming, for it to get that kind of reaction. Imagine if nobody knew it was coming, what the reaction would have been.
Right.
That would have been absolutely insane. I also have Chris Jericho from '99. I still think the way they did that with Y2K and all that stuff, or Y2J, was absolutely incredible. I also like the Goldberg debut with The Rock. I think that was actually very well done. It was ruined completely after that. And then one of my favorite ECW wrestlers of all time, who also was shit on by the WWE after doing one of the best debuts, was Taz.
Yeah, Taz, big time reaction. I think I didn't have Jericho, but I'm going to add this about Jericho. One of the great things too about that, I think, for people, Jericho was actually at that time one of the first big WCW stars that had converted back to WWE.
Well, the funny thing is he wasn't even really a big WCW star.
No. But he
was a mid-carder who became a big star. Right. But that debut was what set the pace for him to become a big star.
Right. But there was some buzz about him coming.
There was definitely buzz because fans wanted to get behind Jericho.
They did. Yeah.
Fans always liked Jericho. Bischoff just had no idea what to do with him.
All right, I'm going to wrap up my list, and then we'll pick a winner here. I got Flair in WWE. like I said earlier, I think that was just so huge for the time because it was so built up. Like, for how many years in wrestling magazines, you know this as well as I do, Flair Hogan. Oh, we're never going to get that match. Flair was the NWA World Champion. Hogan was the WWE World Champion, WWF.
And we never did get it on the platform that it should have been on.
That's true. We did it. But that debut was exciting. That debut made us think that it was going to happen.
Yeah, by the time we saw it, Hogan was past his prime, and Flair only had like 20 years left.
I'm going to go with Hulk Hogan and WCW, by the way. Nobody had that on their list, but it was a huge deal.
They did a freaking parade, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, it was a huge deal. It wasn't but it meant something. Undertaker. A lot of this might be because we ended up being, but at the same time, there was no vignettes. He shows up. Yeah. He doesn't sell anything. He looks like a powerhouse. He's dropping Dusty Rhodes.
Well, the funny thing is they brought him in, and then they did the vignettes afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
They actually showed him like making the caskets and stuff like that. So they did the vignettes after to build him up. So that was actually well done.
There's actually Kane the Undertaker too originally.
Yes.
CM Punk to AEW. Because of Punk taking so much time off and just
a couple days,
never really thinking he was going to come back. It meant something. It was huge. And I got Kane because just the way, the fire, him ripping off the cage. It was one of the few times.
You have Kane over the NWO.
Yeah, I guess so. It might not have been, but at the same time, it's just kind of like one of those things where I just thought.
When it comes to favorite debuts and favorite moments like this, debuting moments, it's what connects with you. You can't really who's right or wrong. You're not wrong unless you're actually just saying a moment that's not a debut.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Hulk Hogan didn't really connect with me, but I recognize the historical importance of him being.
I love the Radicals debut. I just can't say that it's a top 5.
Yeah. I think, there's a lot of votes for different people. I'm going to say we're going to have to put the NWO. We want to do the NWO or Scott Hall?
I think we're better off doing Scott Hall. He actually literally made more lists because it said Scott Hall specifically.
I'm fine with that. I think Jericho made a ton of lists, so I think he has to be
and then
there.
CM Punk's got to be your other one.
I think CM Punk with AEW, yeah. So we're talking about eliminating these guys. I'm going to eliminate Jericho first because I don't think it had the same significance.
I don't think as many WWE
and he just wasn't
fans,
built up as much at the time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think as many WWE fans because there wasn't a lot of necessarily a tremendous. There was crossover fans, but it wasn't like it is now.
Right.
So a lot of times WWE fans have a tendency of only watching WWE.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he had the fanfare that the other two had.
I think he had some fanfare, but he wasn't as a big a deal though as
Scott Hall was
now.
Yeah.
And Scott Hall was a made man, and it was
and we don't even want to talk about how made Punk is.
Yeah, so that's what we're gonna get down to here. Which is really interesting we got down to these final two because if you listen to the 83 Weeks podcast, it's a little bit of that contention sometimes too, where Punk has kind of made reference that, me and Danielson could be a bigger deal than Hall and Nash. And Bischoff says, well, that could be, but if you look at actual numbers and stuff like that, that's probably not the case. Now,
well, you can't compare the numbers either because it's totally different viewing numbers than it would be in that time period.
I agree.
Nobody's doing a 4.0. Much less a 5.
There's no doubt the NWO would go on to mean something game changing, and I just
don't think the debut is big.
It's better than Punk's.
I love Scott Hall coming through there, but he interrupted him. He interrupted a shit match that nobody gave a fuck about.
I'm gonna break it down to you like this too. You're putting Punk's career versus Hall's career. I like Punk. You're putting the NWO's career versus Punk and the NWO's significance. Different thing. I'll go with NWO.
That's totally different, yeah.
But we're not talking about either of those. We're talking about just debuts. And it's not all about significance. It's also about how
Paul
well
didn't even
done
debut in a main event. He literally debuted in the middle of the show.
Punk's mere mention,
the
hint of Punk. They never mentioned Punk. They hinted at Punk the whole time. Sold out, gave the United Center. It's huge. So yeah, I think we're in agreement. We're gonna go with CM Punk for AEW, and I know me and you got engagement to make. I'll just throw it out there just because we've been talking a little wrestle lately. Crown Jewel happened yesterday. I thought it was one of their better Crown Jewel shows.
It was, and Goldberg looked as good as I'd seen him look in years. The last few times we saw Goldberg, he looked like shit, and he actually looked really good last night.
Yeah, I know a lot of people didn't like the Roman Lesnar finish. Good match, shitty finish.
Yeah, good match, horrible finish.
Yeah, but I don't know. I am interested to see. I like that they're still kind of playing Paul. Like, Paul is so masterful. He's doing that look as he's walking away where he's like, you know, who did I meant to toss the belt to Roman, right? And he just throws the belt in the middle. You know,
Oh, no, Paul's a freaking genius.
Yeah, Paul's the man with that shit. Yeah, I'm not happy that the way it looks like it's going to shape up.
Lesnar did come out and say that he's going to come to SmackDown tonight and kick the shit out of Roman Reigns. So